Are you one of those actors thinking about getting back into the game after a leave of absence? Maybe you're an actor of a certain age? I just did air quotes. That is so 2010. We're going to be talking to all of you, but specifically about actors of a certain age on this episode of Casting Actors Cast.
This is Casting Actors Cast. Each episode takes you behind the scenes and answers your questions about the business of show. Please don't forget to subscribe and like wherever you get your podcasts. Now here's the host of Casting Actors Cast, Jeffrey Dreisbach.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of Casting Actors Cast. I'm casting director Jeffrey Dreisbach. So glad that you're here today. We're going to be talking about actors of a certain age. Now, this is a question that I've gotten several times over the past several months. And I love when that happens, when people from all over the world have been contacting me about, I want to get back into acting. Is there a good way to do that? So I'm going to talk about actors of a certain age, but I also want to talk to those of you who are already acting, maybe already entering the business, and you might not be of a certain age, but I think that there's some information that you can take a hold of and run with it as well on this episode of Casting Actors Cast. So stay with us, will you? So this is that moment in the podcast where I often say thank you so very, very much for tuning in. We continue to get all kinds of well wishes from people from all over the world, and we're well over 18,000 downloads of Casting Actors Cast. And as I always say, I couldn't be more grateful. Please do me a huge favor, would you? Would you please go to whatever podcast provider you're getting this podcast on, and would you consider doing a like or perhaps even a review? Those things help me tremendously as I work really hard towards getting you up-to-date information and provide you. I'm not repeating a lot of episodes here. In fact, I'm not repeating any episodes here. I'm coming up with new material all the time, and your vote of confidence makes a big difference in my ability to share and gather new information and continue to grow this fantastic community. Also, there's a website, castingactorscast, all one word.com, that I would love for you to go check out. There's also a form that says dive into the talent pool, and if you fill out that form with your name and your email address, I don't do anything with that information, by the way, you are then taken to a place where you can download a free 100-page PDF book called Conversation Pieces Out of the Studio, the voiceover workshop for professional actors, all about doing voiceover work. So there's a lot there at the website, and I'm excited to be able to share with you that this community continues to grow, and your questions and your feedback means the world to me. So I appreciate your consideration regarding doing that. So that's my whole promotional moment here on Casting Actors Cast. But let's just jump right in, shall we? Here's the concept, and this has happened to me several times, including people from all over the world. I'm getting some email from people saying, I used to act, and then I went to raise a family, or I started my own business, or I became a dentist, even though I always wanted to be an actor. All of those are emails that I've received from folks, and the question really is down to a simple one, and that is, how do I get back into the business after I've been away for a while? And I have definitely some do's and don'ts that I'm looking forward to sharing with you about this. I think that if you practice, or not practice, but if you try to incorporate some of these concepts into your work, I believe that you're going to have much better success. And I think you're going to feel more confident and more self-assured when you enter the profession. So this is actors of a, quote, certain age, end quote. The first thing to do is to really assess your personal situation if you're looking to get back into the business. Or maybe you've started into the business and you kind of just don't know where to go. You really need, in my view, to make an assessment about where you are. For example, perhaps you have done some semi-professional or some professional work in your 20s, and now you're in your 50s or 60s and you want to get back into the business, make a personal assessment like the following. Are you interested in theater? Are you interested in television and film? What are you willing or able to do to start getting out there for those opportunities? So those are questions that you need to answer. Sometimes we get all excited about the prospect of, I've always wanted to act and it's always been a dream of mine and now I'm ready to do it. Well, what does ready mean? Ready kind of has to mean that you are preparing yourself for the profession. And so that assessment should include many of the new concepts based on what's happening today, as opposed to what was happening 20 or 30 years ago. So first order of business are the tools that the actor needs. Number one, new pictures are absolutely essential. There's no way that you're going to be taken seriously unless you have new, really well done professional headshot photography. An 8x10 is still the same 8x10 as it was 10 years ago, but it's new photographing techniques and it's new photographers who are on the cutting edge of what is really there to work better for you than it was 20 or 30 years ago. And I can speak pretty much about this as an actor and now as a casting director. I can tell you that 20 or 30 years ago, you were sort of posed in your shots. And now it's very much you being as real as possible. And good headshot photographers know how to capture a particular moment in your photograph that's not posed, that doesn't look fake, that doesn't look pushed. So there are really some detailed techniques that are being done now that make headshots really, really special. So please do yourself a favor and do the research and get new photographs. That's absolutely the first thing on the list. Also, my suggestion is that you contact those people who you might have had a relationship with in the past prior to you leaving acting. So, for example, if you had some professional credits or some professional work and you maybe met a casting director, the reality is that the assistant to the casting director then is probably the casting director now. That's absolutely true. So if you were very comprehensive in your record keeping when you were an actor then, go back and revisit. Maybe there are some contacts or some immediate connections in your book, in your contact book, that could really help accelerate you getting back into the business. And it brings me to my third point, which is planning. A strategy and a plan of action, and I've done several podcasts on what I call a plan of action, but a strategy about how you're going to approach these people can really help you feel more comfortable because you have a systematic approach to making headway in the business. And that brings me to the next point, which is, the business has changed quite a bit. Because of the internet, because of technology, there are more things that actors have to be familiar with and have an understanding of in order to be in the business of acting. A couple of things to think about, because nothing is worse than having an actor in the business or re-entering the business and they don't have any kind of social media presence. You really do need a website. You really do need to know what's going on in the business. You really need some new material. Don't rely on that monologue as an audition piece that you did 20 years ago thinking that that's going to be useful for you now. Nothing could be further from the truth. The reality is, if you are up to date on what's taking place on Broadway, of what's taking place off Broadway, of what television shows are shooting now, what is happening in the industry in terms of casting, there are all kinds of indicators out there that can help you assess where you belong. And your awareness of what's happening currently can make a huge difference when you have those meetings with agents or casting directors or managers or anybody in the industry, directors, that you have an awareness of what's taking place now and not a reliance on what took place 20 or 30 years ago. So that means it's much more impressive for me to see an actor of a certain age come in with a new monologue for a new play that was done maybe just last season. That's a knockout. That's a win-win because that's saying so many things. First, it's putting you in the world today, plus it's new material, and it's showing me that you have a level of understanding that this is what it is now. So that's a really, I think, strong and useful tip for you to grab a hold of. And I think also a realistic appraisal of where you are and where you want to be is really, really helpful. That goes back to the action plan that I was talking about a little bit earlier. Having an internet presence, having an understanding that the business has changed, it's now time to look at what other opportunities can you create for yourself as an actor of a certain age re-entering the profession. Another thing I'd like to share with you is about making a list of those classes. Taking classes, taking seminars with casting directors, agents, and managers. Those are all folks that are most often than not working in the industry now. And for you to make yourself available to them is an amazing positive step to take on your part. So, for example, in New York City, I can speak pretty much to New York, but there are those places where you can take classes and seminars from casting directors who are actually working currently on a show that they're casting. Let me just also say that actors of a certain age are a commodity. They're very much needed. They're very much sought after. And if you're an actor who's had some experience and now coming back, that puts you in a really, really excellent place, especially if your resume is very clear about what your intentions are. And I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. But making sure that you have those kinds of connections in classes and in workshops, that you're networking the best way that you know how to network. And bringing your full self to the table is always really, really great. And what I mean by that is, if you're interested in doing plays, are you able to go out of town for 3 months? Go to a regional theater to do a really good role? Is that something that you can do fairly easily? If not, you need to take a look at that. You need to take a look at how much energy, how much time, how much effort would you like to put into this? And of course, you can imagine that there's a direct correlation between how much time and how much energy you put into something. The return is equally great. If, on the other hand, this is something you're just going to try a little bit and kind of see what happens, then expect that those results are going to probably have a tendency to trickle in rather than coming in on a strong wave. But let's just talk about the resume a little bit. And it was great that I have my wife, Pat, to tell me and give me some answers and her perspective as well as my own experience. And it's really amazing how we are in sync with this. And that is, it's really great if you're an actor of a certain age coming back into the business after a period of absence, that on your resume you leave us a brief, perhaps creative way of telling us that you are back after a leave of absence. Raised a family for 15 years, now looking forward to getting back into it. Some way on your resume that you can give me a little bit of an explanation about what your story is. Now, I've done a lot of podcasting on, the nuts and bolts of stuff, including resumes, but that's something that actors of a certain age sometimes don't think about. They feel somehow that they're apologizing for the life choices that they made, and that's a big mistake. The better choice is to just fill in the blanks. Let me know why it's been 15, 20 years since you did your last professional production or television or film. But making sure that you, and I say in a creative and clever way, not kind of trying to be cute, but trying to just be, really open about your decision to come back into the business, making it a positive statement about you wanting to do this after a period of time, that can go a really long way for you. And I can tell you that actors who've had some experience and now are coming back, they're welcome so much with open arms, especially if you've taken those previous steps that I've talked about. Everything from new pictures, classes, making those kinds of connections. Remember that life experience counts as an actor. We often forget that, right? I mean, we're so consumed in our 20s about getting the job and networking and, being aggressive about the opportunities that are in front of us. And let me just say that life experience makes a big difference when you're coming back into the industry. So therefore, if you buy that, and I hope you do, then you should also know that no apologies are ever necessary. Not one. Nothing sheepish about you wanting to get back into the profession. And see, this is a profession that welcomes people of all ages. Now, professionally, we can't ask you how old you are. In fact, in the United States, it's illegal to ask how old you are. But having enough life experience, and we have all kinds of roles and opportunities that are out there, why not see if you can take advantage of where you are in your life and jump back into the game? I think it's very, very exciting. I think it's very, very useful. In other words, it's important to be fearless. I think the one negative thing that I have seen from actors who are coming back in after a period of time is that there's almost a level of embarrassment. There's a level of fear that I see. It's as if to say that the time away has made you more fearful of trying to get back in. And I think that that's a wrong approach, frankly. I think it's much, much better for you to let the excitement and let the idea of you acting again drive you to make some of these really good business choices for yourself. As I said many times, you are the CEO of your own company. So think of it as being an entrepreneur, and now you're going to be opening up a new branch of your life and your acting. And I think that can be considered in a very real sense, something that's positive and useful and helpful to you. So congratulations if you're an actor of a certain age and you're looking to get back into the business. Think about some of those things that we've talked about. Know that social media is not something to be afraid of. And I know that we all have this fear factor in terms of new technology happening. And I would ask that you not see it as a limitation, but see it as yet another opportunity to grow. But websites for actors are really, really important. It gives me additional information should I need it. So also I would suggest, I know this is going to sound like a shameless promotional announcement, but I have a lot of early episodes of Casting Actors Cast that you can find on your podcast provider that talks about all of these essential ingredients to having an acting career today. For example, I talk about the right way to do a picture. I talk about resume construction. I've got a really good podcast on self-submitting, which is an area that older people are just sort of freaking out about. And it's not that hard, I promise you. So embracing some of these new technologies mean that you're opening up potentially new opportunities to get hired. So those are some things to think about as you decide to jump in. You know, what kind of person are you? Are you the kind of person who, before they go swimming into the pool, they jump in the pool, they're going to test to see what the temperature is first? Or do you just say, you know what, I'm just going to jump in and see what it feels like? I know I used to sort of do the temperature thing, but lately, over the past, 10, 15 years, I have jumped in with both feet. It's such a joy to be able to just want to remain a sponge. It's such a joy to want to really go wide-eyed into the future and embrace all of that new input. as opposed to being fearful and cautious. I just encourage you in the strongest possible terms to stay close, keep the faith, listen to and watch Casting Actors Cast. These podcast videos are there for you. And let me know how your journey is going. Because I just want to give you a thumbs up. I think it's very, very exciting. And I know that if you do a pragmatic approach, if you do a checklist, that you're going to find success sooner rather than later. Thank you so much for listening and watching. I'm Jeffrey Dreisbach, and this is Casting Actors Cast. Thanks.
Casting Actors Cast is made possible with your support just by listening. Please like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Caitlin Clark.